Today's shiur begins at the Mishnah that you will find about a third of the way down the Omid. On the side of the Daf, you see we have a Nosei Mivneh heading. In the text itself, you may have noticed some diamonds. These represent Shtei Dugmois Shel Peh She'asar Peh She'iter. We'll see two examples of the principle that we've been discussing at quite a great length in our recent shiurim. So we have two more examples of this concept of Peh She'asar Peh She'iter, where a person makes a statement which opens with something that may appear to be detrimental, but then closes a statement with the undoing of that point. The Mishnah, Hoisha Shamra, Eishes Ish Hoyisi, Ugrusha Ani, Ne'menes, a woman who comes forth with information that, as you'll see in a minute, she comes forth with information that we did not know other than her testimony, that she was married, but she is now divorced. She's believed. The opening statement which restricted her, which makes her into a married woman, and hence she's not allowed to be with any other men. It's that, if we believe that, then we have to believe the continuation of her statement that she is now a grusha, meaning she's now not bound anymore to a particular man. She's now free to marry someone else. V'im yesh edim shehoisa eishes ish, if there are witnesses that could tell us that she was a married woman, v'yomeres grushani, and then she tells us that she is divorced, eino ne'menes, she is not believed. Omra nishbesi utorani, a woman says that she was taken captive by Gentiles and she has remained pure, meaning she did not yield to intimacy with the captors. Ne'menes, she is believed, and with that belief she can now marry a Kohen. Sha'apeh she'asar, the statement that she was taken captive, hu hapeh she'iter, it's the same mouth that said that she was taken captive that is also saying that she was able to maintain her fidelity. V'im yesh edim shenishbeis v'hi omeres torani, like we saw it before, if there are witnesses that could testify about her captivity, and she tells us that she remained pure, eino ne'menes, she is not believed. And as we indicated before, this would have ramifications toward her marriage to a Kohen. She would not be believed that she remained pure. And a woman who had relations with a Gentile is forbidden to marry a Kohen. V'im mishenises bo edim harei zu lo teitze. Here we'll just translate this. Later the Gemara has what to embellish on this phrase. But the translation is that if after she got married, she married a Kohen, and then witnesses showed up, harei zu lo teitze, she does not have to leave the marriage. That would be a very limited, superficial translation. However, the Gemara itself asks what exactly is this phrase referring to, and also what does the phrase really mean. Before continuing in the Gemara, we glance at the side where we have a nosei topic heading, which reads, Ma'u ha'mokor o ha'bosis l'peh she'asar peh she'iter. What is the scriptural source, or what is the basis of this concept of Peh She'asar, the person, the mouth that restricts? And if you believe that, so then you would believe HaPeh She'iter, the undoing of that restriction. Omar Ravasi, Minayin la Peh She'asar hu HaPeh She'iter min torah. So in the Gemara we see Ravasi asking this question, from where do we see from the Torah this concept? Shenemar, the pasuk says. Now this pasuk is in the context of a father who is confronting a man, a husband of his daughter, in the context of Motzi Shem Ra. And the details, the background is not essential for this particular piece of Gemara, but in that passage The pasuk says, "Esbiti shenemar esbiti nosati liish hazeh liisha." The father says, he proclaims, "I gave my daughter to this man as a wife." Liish equals osra. When the father says, "I gave him my daughter to this man," that restricts her. That means she's married and she cannot have intimacy with anyone else. And then he also says, "Hazeh hitira." That means that she's allowed to be with her husband. She's not just forbidden to everybody, but she is also allowed to her husband. So that we see from these words the concept of apesha asar, the restriction, and the permission. The Gemara asks, Lama likra, what do I need a pasuk for? Savarahi. This is a matter of logic. He who asra v'hu shari la. If he has the capability of restricting her, he has the capability of freeing her, of providing permission as well. Ela ki itzrich kra, as far as the pasuk of leish hazeh, what it's needed for, Rav Huna Marav, it's for Rav Huna's teaching. The Rav Huna Marav, minayin la'av shenemon lesor es bito min haTorah. From where do we know that a father has the power to prohibit his daughter to anyone else? Rashi points out, shenemon lesor es bito kishi ketano nara, when she is either a minor or a nara, that's an age between 12 and 12 and a half. Technically speaking, she's an adult, but up till 12 and a half, shebiyodo lekacha, it's in the father's power to give her over in marriage. As it says in that parak, minayin she'im omar kidashtiyo leploni shunemon liosra lakol. From where do we know that a father who proclaims, I gave her over in marriage to so and so, that makes her restricted to all other men? From where do we know that a father has that power? And hence when he declares that, he is believed. So the Gemara, shenemar esbiti nosati laish. The father says, I gave my daughter over in marriage. Now the word hazeh lomali, what do I need that word? What does that word teach me? Because in the pasuk itself it says esbiti nosati laish hazeh, but I don't need hazeh for Rav Huna Marav. What does the word hazeh do? And Rashi simply adds, we already established that I don't need it for the concept of peshasahu apesha hitir. That we said is based on a svara, is based on logic. So scripturally speaking, what does the word hazeh do? Mi boya le lichadetani Rabbi Yonah. I need it for the teaching of Rabbi Yonah, detani Rabbi Yonah. Esbiti nosati lish hazeh. Hazeh velo liyavam. The word hazeh is a word that is of a minimizing nature. It's a word that is a limiting word, and what it tells me is that this topic of motzi shemra, where a man claims that his wife was in intimacy with another man after they after they were married. And if the husband turns out to be a liar, he has to pay 100 pieces of silver. He has to pay 100 shekel kesef. That's the parsha of Motzi Shemra. That parsha exists when a husband makes this claim about his wife's infidelity. However, that parsha, that section of the Torah, does not apply to a yavam. If a yavam claims that the wife was promiscuous while after her brother married her, and now we have the surviving brother, the yavam, speaking, and it turns out that he is lying, then he is not subjected to the penalty of the mea kesef. So that the word hazeh serves to restrict the section of the Torah that deals with this issue of a husband who casts aspersions regarding his wife's faithfulness. The punishment that accompanies that particular parsha section of the Torah is restricted to a husband and does not apply to a yavam who makes that kind of claim regarding her marriage to his now deceased brother. Tonu Rabbanon, Ha'isha Shamra, Eishes Ishani, the HaRav Yehonasan Penuyani Nemenes, a woman who says, I'm a married woman. And then she turns around and says, I am an unmarried woman. Well, she's believed. The Gemara asks, in her opening statement, she proclaimed herself to be forbidden to anyone. That's what the concept of chaticha. Shavya means she makes lenafsha. She makes herself a chaticha disura, a unit of prohibition. Meaning, by saying that she is a married woman, that's it. She's now prohibited. How can we believe her when she says that she's a penuya? It's a contradiction to what she said before. You'll notice that this is not the same as Pesha Osar Pesha Hitir, where the undoing of the opening statement there is a logical continuation of what was originally said. If a woman says, for example, I was married, but I was divorced, that's plausible. But for a woman to say, I am married, and then to turn around and say, I'm not married, that's not an example of Pesha Osar Pesha Hitir. That's just a woman who makes a contradictory remark. The Gemara asks, so then we're asking, how can the source say that she's believed? Omar Rova Bar Rav Huna, Kegoin Shenosna Amasla Lidvoreha. The word amasla we can loosely translate as she gave an excuse, an explanation for why she had originally made the opening statement. On the side, we have a topic heading, amasla. Ha'isha she'amra ishes eishani, a woman who says, I am married, and then she turns around and says, I'm not married. Nemenes hayidei amasla. She'll be believed if she provides us with an amasla. By the way, the Rashi that is relevant to this section of Gemara is found on the top of Omid Beis. And there you can see, Rashi says, Amasla, Moshol V'tam, Loma Omra Tchila Mekudeshes Ani. If she can explain why she said initially that she is married, then there's a chance of our listening to her second statement that she's not married. And now we continue in our Gemara. Tanya Nami Hachi, a Tanaic source that supports this. Omra Eishes Ishani, a woman who says, I am married. The HaRav Yehonasan Penuyani, and then later she tells us she is not married. Eino Nemenes. She would not be believed. As we said before, that by saying that she is married, that's it. She's now restricted. She can't undo herself. V'im nosno amaslo lidvoreo nemenes. If she, however, provided us with an excuse or an explanation as to why she said what she did, so then she would be believed. There was once a woman who was a prominent woman and also very beautiful. And all kinds of men wanted to pressure her into marrying them. And she told each one of these fellows, I'm already married. And with that she was able to fend them off. After a while, we saw her enter marriage with some man. Can you explain your behavior? On the one hand, you say to people that you're married, and then you go ahead and get married to somebody. And when we say get married to somebody, we see her entering marriage, a new marriage. So Omra Lahem, she explains, at first, when unfit people came to me, undesirable people or unfit, whatever when they approached her, Omarti, I said, Mekudeshesani, in order to fend them off, she says, I'm already married. And now that I've been approached by proper individuals, I now accepted Kiddushin, accepted marriage for myself. V'zu halacha hela Rav Achosar habir lifnei chachamim be'usha, and this law Rav Acha presented to the chachamim, to the sages in Usha, the name of a city in which the Sanhedrin was present at one point in history. The Amru, and the rabbi said, Im nosna masal dvara ne'emenes, if she provides an explanation, an excuse for why she said what she did originally, then her latter statement will be accepted. Ba'amine Shmuel me'Rav. Omra, a wife says to her husband, Tamea ani. Tamea ani means I am defiled, but it means I am a nida, I'm a menstrual woman, and hence I am forbidden to you. V'chosrav yomra tahorani, and then she says I was not a nida. I was actually muteres. Mahu. What do we say about a case like that? Omar le, Rav answered, Af bezu, in this case as well. Im nosna. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Amasla lidvorel. She provides us with an excuse or an explanation as to why she said what she did. Ne'emenes. She is believed. Tana minei arboim zimnin. Shmuel went over this point 40 times. V'afilu hachi lo ovad Shmuel uvdo benafshei. And even so, when it came to himself, Shmuel did not accept this leniency. If we look at Rashi, 4 lines from the top, Pam achas omlo ishto kain. Shmuel's own wife said to him this, that I am a nida, and then she later on turned around and said, within a relatively short amount of time, she says I am not a nida. V'nosna masel vorel, and she explained why she originally said she's a nida. Upirish hemeno ad shetovlin, and yet Shmuel would not be with her, he would not conduct intimacy with her until her next mikveh immersion. The Tosfos elaborates a little bit more on this in the Dibur HaMasal, the second Tosfos. Vafilu achilov at Shmuel uvdo benafshei. Rach hevi Yerushalmi, the Rach quotes the Yerushalmi Talmud. Shmuel Baal is the kuki litzei. Shmuel wanted to be together in intimacy with his wife. Omra lei, and she told Shmuel, her husband, Tameani, I am a nida, and I can't be with you. Ulamocher Omra tahorani, and the next day she turns around and says, I am allowed. Omar law esmol tamea yuma dain Torah. Yesterday tamea, and today your Torah. For that to be, it's impossible. You need 7 days. A woman who declares that she is a nida. Well, let's just assume for right now she's saying as soon as she becomes a nida, I am a nida. You need 7 days before you can even talk about some aspect of Torah. And again, we're talking on a Torah level. In practical halachic terms, there's more to it than that. But 1 day certainly is not in the cards. So what's going on? Omra le. So she tells her husband, Esmo lo havas bichela ki ahi shaita. I didn't have strength. I was fatigued, so I couldn't engage in that, as opposed to now where I can. Also, Shol Rav. Shmuel approached Rav with his problem. Omar lei, and Rav told him, if she explained why she said the day before Tameani, if she explained as she did, then she is believed. And we saw in our Gemara, though, that that Shmuel nevertheless did not take advantage of that heter, of that ruling for his own benefit, but rather waited that span of time that's required in order for a woman to finish her nida period and become tahora again. There's much more to comment on this particular Gemara. We're not going to elaborate in the context of our Gemara markings Daf Yomi shiur, but just think about what Tosfos reports here and the interplay between husband and wife. And here we're talking about very, very, very great people. And as I say, there's quite a bit to elaborate on this. The Gemara, as it continues, presents us with some new markings. You notice there's a crown shape, and on the side we have a mivneh, structural note. That on this omid, you'll see here and close to the bottom of the omid, 3 lines up from the bottom, Makoros, there are sources, shel edim hamakhishim elu es elu, where witnesses come and they offer contradictory testimony. Be'inyanei shesishin, you'll see that the general topic deals with the married status of a woman. So the Gemara begins, 3rd line from the top, Tana Rabbanim, Shnaim omrim meis, Shnaim omrim lo meis. 2 witnesses say the husband died, and 2 witnesses say he did not die. Shnaim omrim nisgarsha, Shnaim omrim lo nisgarsha. 2 witnesses say this woman is divorced, and 2 witnesses say she's not divorced. Harezu lo tino say. Well, a woman like that, who's the subject of this kind of testimony, should not marry. Ve'im nises, if she does marry someone else, lo teitse, she does not leave. She doesn't leave. Rabbi Nachem Bar Yossi Omer teitzein. Rabbi Nachem disagrees with the Tanakama and says that she does have to leave the new husband. Omar Rabbi Nachem Rabbi Yossi. Amosai ani Omer teitzein. Under what circumstances do I insist on her leaving the new husband? Bisman shebo edem v'achakach nises. When those witnesses that said that the original husband did not die, and in other words, she's now aware not only of original witnesses that say he's dead, but also of witnesses that say he's not dead, and then she goes and marries. Avol niseis v'achakach bo edim, if after hearing about her husband's death from 2 witnesses, she then goes ahead and gets married. And then witnesses come saying that he's not dead. Lo teitze, she does not have to leave the new husband. The Gemara asks, Michti, in looking into this situation, Trey utrei ninu, we have a situation of 2 versus 2. 2 witnesses saying that she is allowed to remarry by virtue of their testimony that the husband's dead, and 2 witnesses that restrict her marriage or remarriage on the grounds that he's not dead. So you have 2 against 2. They would cancel each other out, creating in our minds a doubt, one big question mark. And even in a case where she got married already, she got married and then 2 witnesses show up saying that he's still alive, even in that case, you still have a problem of 2 versus 2. That's trey utrei. Habo oleha ba'asham tolui koi. Relations with her is in effect relations with a woman that there's an element of doubt. There's a doubt of a sin. If, let us say, there was no doubt about the husband, and in other words, he's definitely alive, and someone would have relations with her, they'd have to bring a sin offering, a korban chatas. When you have a circumstance that is doubtful, nevertheless, there is a korban called an osham tolui. It's called a suspended guilt offering. That's brought under circumstances where that same sin, if you knew it was a sin, you would bring a sin offering. When that issue is in doubt, is shrouded in doubt, you bring an Osham Tolui. So how in the world can you allow... So when we say an Osham Tolui, we're basically saying you've got yourself a sinful or possibly sinful relationship. Why would the source say, Lo Teitze, that they can stay together? Every act of intimacy, in effect, is generating another need for a korban Osham Tolui. Omer of Sheshes, Kagon Shenises Le'echod Me'ideha. The woman who got married in the above case, she didn't marry just anyone. She married one of those witnesses that said that he was dead. And Rashi points out that an Osham Tolui is brought only when a person harbors doubt in his mind. But this witness who came in to say he is dead, he has no doubt about her being free to marry, her being a widow now. So there's no need for an Asham Toli. There's no element of sin, or there's no element of even of doubt of sin in his mind. The Gemara asks, but he gufa b'Asham Toli kaimo. But as far as the woman herself is concerned, is there not doubt in her mind? So from her standpoint, she is living with a new husband, but in a state of doubt that maybe she's still married to the first fellow. The Gemara answers, Boimeris Bori Li. The woman is saying that I am certain that he is dead. If he were alive, he would have made contact with me. He would have come back. So in her mind, it is sure that he is dead as well. So there's no issue of an Asham Tolui. There's no issue of doubt of sin here. Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Shnayim Oimrim Meis, Shnayim Oimrim Lo Meis. Very similar to the case above. Two witnesses say the husband is dead. Two witnesses say no. Hare zu lo tinaseh. She should not marry someone else. Lo tetzeh. But if she does, so she doesn't have to leave the second husband. That would seem to be very similar to what we saw above in the name of the Tanakama, of the first opinion. Shnayim omrim nizgarsha, Shnayim omrim lo nizgarsha. Two witnesses testify that she is divorced, and two witnesses say she has not been divorced. Harezu lo tinaseh, she should not remarry. V'imnises tetzin, if she does, she has to leave the second husband. Now, what do we see? We have a split then. As far as Rabbi Yochanan is concerned, he makes a distinction between the case of Mace and the case of Nizgarsha. The Tanakama above, he didn't make a distinction, he didn't make a split. My shno reisha umay shno seifa. Why the difference? What's different about Mace, where Rabbi Yochanan rules lo teitzei, and in the case of Nizgarsha, he says teitzei? Teitzei, of course, means leave the second husband. As you can see, we now have a new series marking. There's a diamond that appears, and on the side, under the Nosei Mivneh heading, we've written, there is Gimel Deis, Lahasber Achilut B'divrei Rabbi Yochanan. 3 approaches to explain this distinction within Rabbi Yochanan, Bein Mikre Shebo Yomru Shnayim Meis, L'Mikre Shomru Nizgarsha. Now the Gemara. Omar Abaye. Tirgima Ba'id Echad. Explain. Tirgima means explain. Rabbi Yochanan, not with 2 witnesses testifying, but 1 witness saying this way and 1 witness saying the other way. And it would go as follows. Eid Echad Omer Meis. In halacha, when a singular witness says that the husband of a married woman, that her husband is dead, that is a special kind of testimony. It's a special case. Himnu Rabbanon Kebeitrei. The rabbis have granted that single witness the believability of 2, as if there are 2. The Rashi quotes the Gemara in Yevomis that explains why we're able to do this, why we're willing to risk it. That a witness that says that a husband is dead, we believe him like 2, and she'll then go ahead and get married on his word. We know that if it turns out that he's still alive, she is in really big trouble. So since there's a big humrah that we impose on her, in the event that the information is not correct and the husband comes back on his 2 feet alive and we see that the whole thing was a lie, she then is, as we say, in big trouble. She'll have to leave the first husband and leave the second husband, and children she had from the second husband are considered, are deemed mamzerim. So since she will pay a very heavy penalty if it's not accurate, we say that there's a built-in deterrent for her for her to remarry unless she's absolutely sure of her husband's death. So if 1 witness says that he's dead, he is granted believability as if he was 2. Uchdeula, and as Ula teaches, Yomar Ula, Kol Mokum Shemina Torah Eid Echad, Harei Kan Shnayim. When the halacha grants believability to one witness, in general, Torah law requires two witnesses to establish facts. But when we see one witness is granted believability, he has the power of two. V'hai dekomer lomes, and the single witness that says he's not dead, have leichad. He's considered as he is a single witness. The ein dvorav shel echad b'mokum shnayim, and the words of one witness have no power in the face of the words of two witnesses. In this case, the first single witness had the power of two, as we said. If that be the case, then let her get married as a first choice. Why did Rabbi Yochanan say that in such a case, the best choice is not to get married, but if she got remarried, she doesn't have to leave? Why did he have to set it up or phrase it like that? Let her simply get married as a first choice. She's got, in effect, the halachic power of two witnesses saying that the husband is dead. The Gemara answers Mishum de Rav Asi. Because of Rav Asi's teaching, we'll better understand Rabbi Yochanan. Diyom Rav Asi, Hoser mimcha kshuspe v'lasus v'saim hachek mimcha. Without translating the pasuk literally, it means stay away from murky situations. After all, you have when you look at things superficially, without the halachic analysis that we gave, you've got contradiction in testimony, and we know that the woman had once been married. She should now marry a second guy. There's a certain element of doubt, if you will. It's a murky situation, and the pasuk says, as good advice, stay away from situations that are questionable. That is as far as the first part of Rabbi Yochanan's ruling. One witness, of course, according to Abaye, one witness said he's dead. One witness says he's not dead. The witness that says he's dead has the power of two versus one. So that's why im nises lo teitse. She doesn't have to leave the second husband. Seifa, the continuation of Rabbi Yochanan, though, Eid echad omer nizgarsha v'eid echad omer lo nizgarsha. One witness says that she has been divorced, and the other witness saying she has not been divorced. Travayu be'eshes ish komisiti. Both of these witnesses, these two people, these two men, acknowledge that you're dealing with a woman that was married. Everyone agrees here she had the status of eshes ish. V'hai dekomer nizgarsha, the one witness that's saying she was divorced, havilei chad, he then is considered one, a singular witness, v'ein dvorav shel echad b'mokam shnayim, and as a singular witness saying that she's been divorced, he doesn't have weight against the testimony of two that say that she had been married. Hence, she is considered, it's two versus one, and the two saying she has the status of a married woman. Hence, she has no grounds on which she can justify her marriage to a second man, and therefore, im nises teitzei, as Rabbi Yochanan said. A second approach. Rav Amar li'olam trei utrei ninu. Not like Abaye, but Rabbi Yochanan was talking about a case like we thought originally. It's two versus two. Two witnesses saying that in effect she would be allowed to remarry, and two witnesses saying not so, whether it's nizgarsha or meis baila. V'ro Rabbi Yochanan dvarav shel Reb Nachem bar Yossi begerushin, v'lo ro b'misa. Rabbi Yochanan accepts Rabbi Menachem's restrictive ruling with regard to gerushin. You notice we have an arrow. You can look back at the arrow on the upper part of the page, facing the line where Reb Nachem Reb Yossi appears, and he said teitzei, that if you have two witnesses saying she was divorced and two witnesses saying not divorced, she has to leave the second husband, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan ruled. So he ruled like Reb Nachem Reb Yossi regarding gerushin. but he didn't see eye to eye with Reb Menachem Reb Yossi regarding the case of Misa. That's v'lo ra b'Misa. He didn't accept Reb Menachem's ruling regarding the case of 2 versus 2 on the issue of the husband's death or lack thereof. And in saying that, the result is im niseis lo teitzei. Reb Menachem had told us im niseis teitzei, but I don't accept Reb Menachem on that issue. Hence im niseis lo teitzei, like Reb Yochanan's first comment. My taima. Why the difference? Why this distinction? Misa eino yechola makchoshaso. With regard to the information concerning death, if the husband would come back, she wouldn't be able to say to him, "You're dead." He's standing there. Therefore, if it's not clear to her that he is really dead, she would not have remarried. The fact that she remarries, it shows us that she has total clarity and certainty in her mind that he is dead. Otherwise, she would have no way out, no way of justifying her remarriage in the event that the husband shows up. Therefore, in the case of mace, im nisei slo teitzei. Gerushin, though, in the case of divorce, yechola makchoshaso. In that case, we saw 2 witnesses saying she was divorced, and apparently she was happy with that testimony, as witnessed by the fact that she went ahead and remarried someone else. And 2 witnesses, though, that said that she was not divorced. Her marriage to a second husband, is that a demonstration of her certainty that she was divorced? So our Gemara is saying, no, that's not a demonstration of her certainty that she has been divorced. But rather, it's because she has self-confidence that if her husband were to come and challenge her supposed divorce, she would contradict him to his face. She would say to him, "What do you mean I'm not divorced? Certainly you divorced me." So it's because of that, we'll say, that knowledge that she has, that she could contradict her husband himself if he should come and declare her still married. That's what gives her the confidence to marry a second man. So it's not a function of her knowledge, of her certainty of being divorced per se, but it's rather her confidence of her being able to simply push off her husband if he should come and challenge. Well, just confidence to contradict someone, that's not halachic grounds for marrying a second man. The Rashi that we look at together, Gerushin Yechola Makoshoso. We're looking at Rashi about a third of the way up, or a quarter of the way up from the end of the Rashi commentary. Im Yovo v'Yomar lo gerashtich. If the husband himself would come along and say, "I didn't divorce you," he tomar, she'll say to him, "Gerashtani, yeah, you divorced me." Hilkoch Ishoris law. If we allow her to marry and stay with a second man based on the testimony of 2 witnesses that said she was divorced, Samcha al kosha uminsva pi edim halolu misofik. She'll rely on her power to counter her husband's claim and marry on the basis of those witnesses that said she was divorced, all in a state of doubt. V'lo mirtasa lemedek shapir. She's not sufficiently deterred from marrying that second man and lacking, as a result, sufficient motivation to check out the situation carefully. We continue in the Gemara. Umi chatzifa kulehai. I should just point out that from here till the next time, and the Gemara gets involved with what's called a detail. We're going to question the answer we just gave. But the Gemara will question it and also answer. So as far as the structure is concerned, that's why this section we put in brackets, because it's dealing simply with this with the evaluating the answer. But the answer stands. The chiluk between Misa, where we said Einu Yichola Machashoso, and Gerushin Yichola La Machashoso, that's the hezber for Rava's din. And Rav Asi comes up with a third approach to Rav Yochanan that we'll see when we get to Rav Asi. So in the meantime, let's go through the bracketed section. Would a woman be so bold as to contradict her husband? Her husband says, I didn't divorce you. Would she be so bold as to contradict and said, yes, you did? The Omer Rav Hamnuna, Ha'isha Shamra Labayla Gerash Tani, a woman who says to her husband, you divorced me. Ne'emenes, she is believed. Chazaka ein isha meiza panel b'fnei baila. There's an accepted, there's a given a status that women have, that they would not be so bold as to simply contradict their husband unless it's absolutely true. So that as far as the point that was made before, that we don't rely on the woman because we don't rely on the woman in the case of Gerushin, because she would simply she has this confidence that she can simply repudiate, rebuff that which her husband says just for the sake of contradicting him. That's not so. Women don't behave like that. If a woman says to her husband, you divorced me, it must be the absolute truth. Otherwise she wouldn't say that. So if we were to accept then Rav Hamnuna as such, then we would go back to the issue of why would Rabbi Yochanan have made any distinction between Misa and Gerushin. Just like in the case of Misa, she is sure that he's dead because she knows that she'd have nothing to say to him if the husband were to come back. So too in the case of Gerushin, if she is remarrying on the grounds that she is telling us, yes, he divorced me, she's telling the absolute truth. Why then should she leave the second husband? The Gemara answers, Hani Mili, that which we say that like Rav Hamnuna, that a woman would not be meiz upon him, she wouldn't be so bold as to say something like that unless it's absolutely true. When do we say a woman would not be meiz upon him? When there are no witnesses that are supporting that claim that she's divorced. Where there are witnesses that are supporting, that are helping that position, Me'iza u'me'iza, she will be so bold as to say to his face that you divorced me, and thereby serving as an excuse for her to remarry a second man. Rav Asi Omar, Rav Asi again explaining Rabbi Yochanan above, Kagon di Amri Edim, Achshav Meis, or Achshav Girsha. The witnesses that say that the husband died, they're saying he died today. He drowned at sea today, or he was eaten by a lion. But it's of an immediate nature. This is information that we have no way of checking out, and therefore, as a first choice, she should not remarry. But if she does, she doesn't leave the second husband. And Rashi adds a technical point, but we discussed it above, and she's able to remarry if she's remarried one of the witnesses that said he's dead. However, in the case of Gerushin, the witnesses that are saying she's divorced, they're also saying she was divorced today. The Gemara now explains the difference. Misa leko levru. As we explained, the case of Misa, there's no way for us to check out the details. Therefore, if she remarries, and she's remarrying one of the witnesses. And we know that if he were to come back, she'd be in real big trouble. So we allow her to stay with the second marriage if she did remarry. Gerushin, though, what are the two witnesses saying? They're saying she got divorced today. Iko levrura, there's room for further clarification. Damrino lo, we say to her, im isa dehachi hafetz, if it's so as they're saying that you were divorced today, afsi lon gitech, show us your divorce document. It's true that people lose things, but not within a day. And if she can't produce the divorce document, that casts a tremendous shadow of doubt on her being actually divorced. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan will tell us that if she did marry someone else on the heels of that testimony that she was divorced that very same day, and she couldn't produce the divorce document, she has to leave the second husband. We continue, but beforehand we look at the side where we have a topic heading. Shnayim omrim niskatsha, im nises lo teitzei, shnayim omrim nisgarsha, etc. teitzei. Like we had before, we have 2 verses 2 regarding the issue of a woman's marital status. 2 witnesses saying that she got married, and 2 witnesses saying she did not get married. 2 witnesses saying that she got divorced. 2 witnesses saying that she did not get divorced. 2 separate cases here. Let's see how this Tanaic source presents them. You'll see a contrast in these 2 cases. Tonu Rabbanon, Shnayim Omrim Niskatsha, Ushnayim Omrim Loi Niskatsha. 2 witnesses saying that this woman just got married, and 2 witnesses saying she did not get married. Harezu lo tinose. She should not marry another man. V'im nises, if she does marry another man, lo teitse. She doesn't have to leave that second fellow. Shnayim omrim nizgarsho, shnayim omrim lo nizgarsha. 2 witnesses saying that she was divorced, and 2 witnesses saying she was not. Harezu lo tinose. V'im nises teitse. She shouldn't marry a second man, and if she does, she has to leave that second husband. The Gemara asks the obvious question. My shna, we're at the top of Daf Chof Gimel. My shna reisha umay shna seifa. Why? What is the difference between the reisha case involving niskatsha and the seifa case involving nisgarsha? Structurally, we see triangles on the side of the Gemara. You notice we have a mivneh, a structural note. The triangles represent Shnei Derachim Lahasbir Havdel Bein Areisha V'Aseifa Shel Abraisa B'Sof Chof Beis Amid Beis. Well, 2 approaches to explain the difference between the Reisha and Seifa in that Braisa. The first triangle, by the way, you notice it's the long marking, and the second triangle as well, a long marking. These involve what are called long answers. Omar Abaye, Tir Gima Be'eid Echad. We saw this approach when we were dealing with trying to understand Rabbi Yochanan back on Chof Beis Amid Beis, and it's interesting to note once you have the Gemara marked, you can see very quickly that was Abaye's approach in resolving the Rabbi Yochanan psak. Abaye follows the same approach in resolving this brisa. So how do we apply it? As follows. One witness says she got married. One witness say no, she never got married. Both witnesses acknowledge that up till now she was an unmarried woman. The witness that says, but she got married, he is a single person. He's a single witness. One witness has no power in the face of 2. So you have 2 witnesses that acknowledge that till now she was known as an unmarried woman. Therefore, if she marries someone else, she doesn't have to leave him. Seifa, one witness says that she was divorced, and the other witness say no, she was not divorced. both are in agreement that she had the status of a married woman. The one witness, the single witness that says that she got divorced, he is at best he's a single witness. And the words of one don't have any strength, don't have any power against the words of two witnesses. Therefore, as far as the two witness information is concerned, she is a married woman. Therefore, if she marries someone else, she must leave him. Rav Ashi Omar, Li'olam Treu Trey. As far as the Tanaic source is concerned, it's two witnesses versus two witnesses, not like Abaye's approach, the epuch, but flip things around. That means in the Reisha, we will say that if she married someone else, she has to leave the second husband. The Reisha being the case of the Niskacha. And in the Seifa, we will say Lo Teitzei. And let's continue now reading that. Shnayim Omrim, the two, in the case of the Niskacha, they are saying as follows. Now here we notice the change in language. Ro'inuha sheniskacha. Two witnesses are saying, we saw her accept marriage from some man. Ushnayim omrim lo ro'inuha. And two are saying, we didn't see lo ro'inuha sheniskacha. We didn't see her accept marriage. Harezu lo tinasei. She should not now marry some other man. Nises teitzei. If she marries some other man now, she's got to leave him, leave that new husband. Pshita, it's obvious. Lo ra'inuha, the testimony of the second witnesses that say we didn't see her get married, ain't no raya. That's no proof that she didn't actually get married. All they're saying is we didn't see her get married. They're not saying she did not marry. They're saying we didn't see it. And statements like that, we didn't see something, is not proof of anything. So the ruling, according to the way Rav Asi is presenting the Tanaic source in this reversed fashion, you've got a source that's telling us something that's obvious. You don't need Tanaic sources to reveal the obvious. So why would it teach this? Lo tzricha. No, it needs to be taught. What are the circumstances? The dairi b'chotzer echad. You have these witnesses that are saying we didn't see her get married. They live in the same courtyard with her. Mahu detema im isa deniskat shekola isla lamilsa. Without this Tanaic source, I would have thought on my own, if she really got married, it would have created literally noise. It would have created public talk about it. Would have been known. And since there is no koil, since as far as they're concerned, it's not known. Everything's quiet. Therefore, we would have thought she's definitely not married. Kalmash Malon, the source is telling us through the ruling that if she does marry a second guy, she's got to leave him. The Avdi Inshi the Mekachi B'tzina. This source is revealing to us that point of information, that people do get married in quiet, or in privacy, in quiet, where there is no koil. So what we have then are two witnesses saying that we saw her marry. Two witnesses are saying we didn't see it. That their statement of we didn't see it has value to us, insofar as we just said, even though you might have thought that it creates noise, and in the absence of the noise, in the absence of the public awareness, she would be definitely not married to a first guy. We don't say that. And therefore, she has, all we're left with then is the testimony that she definitely had married some man, and therefore if she marries some other guy, she's got to leave him. Seifa, Shnayim Omrim Ro'inua Shenizgarsha. Shnayim Omrim Lo Ro'inua Shenizgarsha. Two witnesses are saying we saw her receive a divorce document. We saw her get divorced. Other two witnesses are saying we didn't see her get divorced. Arezu Lo Tinasei. V'misei slo tetzei. She shouldn't marry a new man, a new husband, but if she does, she doesn't have to leave him. My komash malon, what's the purpose of this seifa? Afagav the diary b'chotzer echad. Are you telling me that even though the witnesses that are saying we didn't see her get divorced are living in the same chotzer, so even though they're living in the same chotzer, and you would think they would, if there really was a divorce, so they would know about it, and since they didn't know about it, they don't hear about it, so she is maybe not considered divorced. Therefore, the source is telling us that things take place in private. Well, hainu hach, all of that is the same as what we saw in the Reisha. Why is there any need to teach this seifa, the second part of the source in this fashion? The Gemara answers, Mahu de tema gabi gerushin hu de avidi inshi de mekachi betzina. When it comes to marriage, it's not totally uncommon for people to get married in private. That's avidi, and people do practice getting married in private. It's not something very odd. So, had I just taught the case of kiddushin, I wouldn't have known how to conclude with regard to the case of divorce. Aval gabi gerushin, if in fact she had been divorced, kala is law lemilsa. That would have certainly created noise. Divorces are basically very unpleasant, and what leads up to it creates a lot of noise. This is what I would have thought. And if we didn't hear any of that, any noise about her getting divorced, then she's definitely an Eishes Ish. Komash Malon, the source reveals, even in the case of Gerushin, the Avidi Inshi, the Mekachi, U the Megarshi, Betzina. People will do that in the divorce in private as well. And the chiddush then is that even though they will divorce in tzina, and we have two witnesses saying she's definitely divorced, two witnesses are saying they're simply not aware of it, and now we're telling you that people get divorced in private, so the testimony of the two that say she's divorced is very solid. Even so, the source also tells us that as a first choice, lechatchila, she should not remarry.